The day I got the call, "You're in. Report to the fire watch tower," I thought I'd landed my dream job. I've always preferred the quiet of the woods to the chaos of the city. Give me endless trees and the hush of nature over traffic and small talk any day. But nothing could have prepared me for what I've found out here. 6 days into my 3-month post, and already things have gotten strange. I'm not talking about the usual loneliness or the weird sounds that echo through the trees at night. I mean things that make you question what's real, things that make you wonder if you'll ever make it out of these woods the same person. I started this diary for 2 reasons. First, to keep my mind busy during these long, dark nights, because out here, your thoughts can turn on you fast. Second, in case something happens to me. If you're reading this, I want you to know what really goes on in these forests. Maybe I sound paranoid. Maybe I am. But after what I've seen, I don't care if you believe me. All I can do is write it down and hope someone's listening. I'm stationed in one of the largest forests in the Pacific Northwest, miles and miles of dense, ancient woodland. The kind of place where, if something wanted to hide, it could do so forever. This is what's happened so far. The motel sign buzzed with a dying neon flicker when I pulled up, the Pinecrest Lodge, though most of the P was burnt out. I'd gotten in after dark, my beat-up truck loaded with everything I owned. The place looked like it hadn't been updated since the 70s, peeling wallpaper, that sticky motel carpet smell. But it was cheap, and I just needed one night before heading to the ranger station in the morning. The old man at the front desk didn't even look up when I walked in, just kept reading his newspaper. I cleared my throat, and he folded it down slow, like he was annoyed at the interruption. That's when I noticed his eyes, watery but sharp, taking me in. His name tag said Earl. He looked me up and down, then said, "Another one, huh?" Like we were continuing a conversation we'd never had. I thought he meant another traveler. "Yeah, just passing through," I said, reaching for my wallet. He made a sound, not quite a laugh, more like air escaping a tire. "Sure you are." He slid the key across the counter without asking how many nights. "Room 12, last one on the left." As he took my cash, his fingers were covered in these weird white scars, like old burns. Maybe from cooking oil or something, but the pattern looked wrong. Too deliberate. I tried not to stare. "Forestry Service send you?" he asked, though I hadn't mentioned the job. When I nodded, he just said, "Figured." Then, softer, almost to himself. They always look so hopeful at first. That's when I noticed the bulletin board behind him, dozens of business cards pinned up, most for temp agencies or odd jobs. Right in the center, a newer-looking flyer. "Now hiring park rangers," with a phone number in bold. Not unusual, except for how many there were. Same flyer, same number, at least 10 copies. I took my key and was halfway to the door when Earl called after me. "You seem like a decent kid. Get yourself an early breakfast at Rose's tomorrow. Avoid the special." He went back to his paper like that was a normal thing to say. The room was exactly what you'd expect. Stained bedspread, TV bolted to the dresser, that weird motel smell that's half bleach, half something you can't place, but clean enough. I stretched out on the bed, still buzzing from the drive, the new job, the fresh start. Then I realized why Earl's comment bugged me. The Forestry Service had called me out of nowhere last week, said they'd pulled my application from some national database. I hadn't even remembered applying. They offered double the usual seasonal pay, plus housing. When I asked about turnover, the guy on the phone laughed. "Let's just say our rangers either love it or, well, Let's just say we're always hiring. I told myself it was just some rural staffing shortage, but now, staring at the water-stained ceiling, listening to the creaks of the old motel, the pieces started fitting together wrong. The quick hire, the overselling of the job, the way Earl looked at me like I was already a ghost. I pulled out my phone. No service, which tracked for the middle of nowhere. That's when I heard it. A scratching sound, faint but there, coming from the wall near the headboard. Not mice. Something bigger. Slow, deliberate drags, like fingernails on drywall. I pressed my ear to the wall, holding my breath. It stopped. Then, clear as anything, 3 sharp knocks from inside the wall. I jerked back. The knocking didn't come again. I told myself it was pipes, even though nothing sounded like that. Eventually, I must have slept, because I woke with a start to sunlight pouring through the thin curtains. The wall looked normal in daylight, just old wallpaper. I packed up fast, suddenly eager to get to the ranger station. Outside, the morning was crisp and sunny, birds chirping. The motel didn't look half as creepy in daylight. Near the office door, I noticed what I'd missed last night, a small corkboard labeled Community Notices. Most were yard sales, lost pets. But 3 were different. Same format, same font, spaced evenly apart. Missing, with grainy photos of teenagers, dates from last month. All 3 had disappeared while camping near Black Elk Ridge. There were no found flyers underneath. The town had one main street, a gas station, a diner, and a camping supply store called Trail's End. I needed gear, so I went in. The bell above the door jingled, and the guy behind the counter barely glanced up from his magazine. He had that look people get out here, like he hadn't shaved in a week, but it wasn't on purpose. I grabbed a backpack off the shelf, then noticed the bulletin board by the register. 3 missing posters, lined up in a row. Same style, same font. Teenagers, 2 guys and a girl, all smiling in their photos. Dates from 5 weeks ago. Last seen camping near Black Elk Ridge. No updates, just the word missing in bold. The owner saw me looking. Bear attack, probably, or mountain lion, exposure, maybe. He said it like he was talking about the weather. If they don't find him within a week, they won't find him at all. I stared at him. That happen often around here? People go missing all the time in these woods. Ain't nothing new. He scratched his chin. 1963 was the year George Munson was the name. I waited for him to explain. He didn't. Who's George Munson? The owner sighed, like I was making him work too hard. Local guy, accused of murdering kids back then. They never proved it, but everyone knew. Then one day he walks out of the woods like nothing happened after being missing for months. Died in his sleep a week later. He shrugged. Like I said, ain't nothing new. I bought the backpack. The whole time I could feel those missing kids' faces staring at me from the board. The owner bagged my stuff without another word. Outside the sun was bright, but the air felt heavier. I walked down the street passing the diner, Rose's, like Earl had mentioned. Through the window I could see a waitress wiping down tables. Normal small-town stuff. Except nothing about this place felt normal. I checked my phone. Still no service. The ranger station was another 10 miles up the road, but suddenly I wasn't in a hurry to get there. Something about the way that store owner talked, like disappearances were just part of living here. And George Munson walking out of the woods after months? That didn't sound like a bear attack. A truck rumbled past, kicking up dust. I noticed another bulletin board outside the post office. Same 3 missing posters, plus a few older ones. Faded, edges curling. Different names, different years. but all the same story. Last seen near the woods. I thought about the Forestry Service hiring me so fast, the way Earl looked at me, the knocking in the motel wall. None of it added up, but none of it was proof of anything either. Just a weird town with weird history. Then I saw the fourth poster. It was newer than the others, but already weathered. A guy in his 30s, clean cut, smiling in a button-up shirt. The dates were from 3 weeks ago. Last seen, Firewatch Tower 7. My stomach dropped. That was my tower, the one I was supposed to report to tomorrow. I tore the poster down without thinking, folded it small and shoved it in my pocket. The paper felt too light for what it meant. The diner door opened, and the waitress, Rose, I guessed, stepped out to shake a rag. She saw me standing there and gave a half wave. "You coming in or just gonna stare at the menu all day?" Her tone was friendly, but her eyes flicked to the bulletin board behind me, to the empty space where the poster had been. She didn't mention it, just held the door open, waiting. I went in. The place smelled like coffee and grease, normal, safe. But as the door swung shut behind me, I caught Rose looking at me the same way Earl had, like she was already counting down the days until I'd be on one of those posters too. The booth was sticky under my hands. Rose slid a menu across the table. "Avoid the special," she said, almost too quiet to hear, then louder. "Coffee?" I nodded. Outside the window, the woods stretched out beyond the town, dark and endless. Somewhere out there was Tower 7, and whatever happened to the guy before me. The coffee at Rose's was better than I expected, thick and bitter, the kind that stays hot forever. Rose herself was mid-50s maybe, with hair dyed a shade of red that didn't exist in nature. She moved like someone who'd been on her feet for 30 years straight. When she slid into the booth across from me, I figured she was just being friendly. Then she said, "You're the new ranger, huh?" And I realized small towns don't need the internet to spread news. I nodded, stirring my coffee even though I hadn't put anything in it. "First day tomorrow." Rose lit a cigarette right there in the diner. Nobody blinked. "They tell you about Elizabeth Wells." The name meant nothing to me. Rose exhaled smoke through her nose. Course they didn't. Forestry Service likes them fresh. She tapped ash into a napkin. Back in 1912, Elizabeth Wells got run out of town for devil worship. Folks called her the Black Elk Witch, said she'd make pacts with things in the woods. I laughed, but it came out wrong. Rose didn't smile. She came back 15 years later, middle of the night. Next morning, 3 kids were gone, just vanished from their beds. Rose's cigarette glowed. Town searched for days. Then someone noticed smoke coming from Wells's old place up in the hills. Outside, a truck backfired. I jumped. Rose didn't. They found her inside, surrounded by things. Bones arranged in circles, jars full of... Well, nobody opened them to check. Sheriff put a bullet in her head right there. Burned the house down after. Rose ground out her cigarette. That's when the disappearances stopped. For a while. My pancakes arrived. They looked suddenly unappetizing. "You're saying a witch cursed the town?" Rose snorted. "I'm saying weird shit happens in those woods. Always has." She leaned in. "You know why they call it Black Elk Ridge? Because the elk up there, their fur grows in black, not dark brown. Black, like something poured ink over 'em." The bell over the door jingled. Rose glanced up, then back at me. "Then there's the Blood Moon cult." "The what?" "Bunch of crazies living deep in the backcountry. They're why we get so many missing hikers." Rose lowered her voice. They take 'em during blood moons. Do things. Sacrifices, some say. Rituals. Nobody's ever caught 'em, but folks find the remains sometimes, arranged in patterns, missing certain parts. A family sat down 2 booths over, parents and a little girl coloring a menu. Rose raised her voice to normal. More coffee? I pushed my plate away. You believe all this? Rose refilled my cup without asking. Believe? Number. But I don't go in those woods after dark either. She nodded toward the window. Black Elk Ridge loomed in the distance. That fire tower you're assigned to? Tower 7? Last ranger there disappeared 3 weeks back. They found his boots at the base, laces still tied. The coffee turned to acid in my stomach. I thought about the poster in my pocket. Rose wiped her hands on her apron. Just watch yourself up there. And if you hear whistling at night, don't go looking for it. Whistling? She was already walking away. Enjoy your breakfast. I didn't touch the food, just sat there watching the ridge through the window. The trees looked normal from here, just trees. But now I couldn't stop picturing black-furred elk moving between them. Or things that weren't elk at all. The little girl at the other booth dropped her crayon. It rolled under my table. When I picked it up, she was staring at me with these huge, serious eyes. You're going to the tower? Her mother shushed her, but the girl kept staring. I nodded. She whispered something then. So quiet I almost missed it. Don't let the funny animals in. Her mother yanked her away, apologizing. But the girl's words stuck. Funny animals. Like what Jenny from the missing posters had said. I left cash on the table and got out of there. The sun was high now, but the air felt colder. Tomorrow I'd be in those woods, alone. Back in my truck, I unfolded the missing ranger's poster. His smile looked forced in the photo, like he already knew. I wondered if they'd ever find the rest of him. Then I started the engine and headed toward the ranger station. Might as well get this over with. The training retreat was supposed to be standard stuff. Fire safety, first aid, how to deal with bears. We set up camp in a clearing about 5 miles from the main ranger station. There were 6 of us new recruits and 3 senior rangers running the show. The first day went fine, just paperwork and lectures. Then night fell, and someone started a campfire. That's when the stories started. Senior Ranger Haggerty was the first to talk. He had this way of speaking like he was bored, even when the words coming out of his mouth were anything but. 2006, he said, poking the fire with a stick. Crater Lake. 8-year-old boy goes missing during a family hike. We searched for weeks. Nothing. The fire popped. Someone passed around a flask. I didn't take any. Then a hiker finds the kid's jacket stuffed in a rock cavity, Haggerty continued. 135 miles from where he vanished. Kid was inside it. He looked at each of us, making sure we were listening. Body looked like his insides had exploded. Blood vessels burst. Coroner said exposure, but the kid had only been dead a few hours. Had berries in his stomach too, like he'd been eating them right before. Nobody spoke for a while. The fire crackled. Ranger Vasquez, the only woman in the senior group, took over. That's nothing, she said. Couple years back, a pair of campers reported finding a baby in the woods. Said it was just lying there, clean, unharmed. They brought it back to their site, called it in. She took a long drink from her coffee. When we got there, the couple was dead. Throats slit. No baby. One of the new guys laughed nervously. You're messing with us." Vasquez didn't smile. "Two guys in black SUVs showed up before the cops did. Told us to close the trail. Case got marked as a bear attack." She tossed her coffee grounds into the fire. "Bears don't use knives." The flask went around again. This time I took a sip. The whiskey burned, but not enough to distract from the stories. Senior Ranger Cole, the oldest of the three, hadn't spoken yet. He was staring into the fire like it was showing him something. Finally, he said, "You hear whistling at night? Don't follow it." I froze. Rose had said the same thing. Cole didn't explain, just kept talking. "Found a tent once, all zipped up nice and tight. Inside, a guy with his face peeled off. Not cut, peeled, like someone took a potato peeler to him." He rubbed his own face absently. "No blood on the tent walls, just gone." One of the new recruits stood up suddenly. "I'm gonna turn in." He walked off toward his tent. Nobody tried to stop him. Haggerty chuckled. "He won't last." The stories kept coming. A hiker who vanished from a trail in broad daylight, his boots found standing upright in the middle of a creek. A group of campers who reported seeing people with no faces before their entire site was torn apart. A ranger who went missing for 3 days, then came back with no memory of where he'd been. Just a single black feather stuck to his shirt. By midnight, it was just me and the senior rangers left by the fire. The others had all gone to bed looking queasy. "You think we're trying to scare you?" Vasquez said, watching me. I shook my head. "You don't care enough to scare us." That got a laugh out of Haggerty. "Smart kid." Cole leaned forward. "Truth is, we tell these stories because nobody else will. Forestry Service likes to keep things quiet. Bad for tourism." He spat into the fire. "But you should know what you're walking into." I thought about the missing posters, the witch stories, the way Earl had looked at me. How many rangers go missing? The three exchanged glances. Vasquez answered, "Enough that they're always hiring." The fire was dying. Embers glowed in the dark. Haggerty stood, stretching. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's your first real day." As I walked to my tent, I heard Cole mutter something to the others. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear. He didn't think I'd last either. Inside my tent, I lay awake for hours, listening to the woods. At some point I heard it, faint, far off, but unmistakable. Whistling. A high, thin tune like someone mimicking a bird but getting it wrong. I didn't go looking. Morning came slow. The senior rangers acted like nothing had happened, like we just talked about weather patterns all night. They handed out assignments. I got Tower 7, of course. As I packed my gear, Vasquez pulled me aside. "You hear anything weird up there, radio it in, even if it sounds stupid." "What counts as weird?" She gave me a look. "You'll know." The drive to Tower 7 took 2 hours on a dirt road that got narrower and rougher the farther we went. When we finally reached the base of the tower, Haggerty didn't get out of the truck, just pointed up. "Supplies are stocked. Radio checks are at 800 and 2,000. Don't miss them." Then he drove off, leaving me standing there with my bags and the key to the tower. At the base of the steps, I noticed something white in the dirt. I bent down to look. A single feather, black as oil. I left it there and started climbing. The call came in at 3:17 a.m. 2 kids missing from a campsite near Black Elk Ridge. Jenny and Matthew, ages 7 and 5. Their parents woke up to an empty tent, the zipper still closed from the inside. I was the closest ranger, so I got there first. The campsite looked normal at first glance. Tent intact, no signs of struggle. The parents were hysterical, the mom clutching a stuffed rabbit the girl had left behind. I radioed for backup and started searching the immediate area. Standard procedure. I found Jenny about half a mile from the site, standing perfectly still under a pine tree. No scratches, no dirt on her clothes, like she'd just appeared there. When she saw me, she didn't cry or run to me, just said, "The funny animals took Matthew to the basement." I knelt down to her level. What funny animals? She described them like it was the most normal thing in the world. They had people bodies but animal heads. One was a deer, one was a bird. They smelled bad. She tugged at her shirt. They fed me berries in the attic. Matthew went to play in the basement. There was no house anywhere near the campsite. Just woods. The search team arrived and combed the area for hours. No sign of Matthew, no footprints except ours. The parents kept asking Jenny questions, but her story never changed. The funny animals had taken them to a burnt house with an attic and basement. She described peeling wallpaper, a broken chandelier, specific details a kid wouldn't make up. The sheriff dismissed it as trauma, said she must have wandered off, gotten confused. But I kept thinking about the way Jenny said they smelled bad, like wet fur and something else she couldn't name. That night at the station, I sat with Jenny while her parents gave statements. She drew pictures with crayons, stick figures with animal heads. One had antlers, one had a beak. At the bottom of the page, she drew a black square. "That's the basement," she said. "Matthew's still there." I radioed the description to the search teams. They humored me, but I could tell they thought it was pointless. We searched every inch of those woods. No burnt house, no basement. 3 days later, they called off the search. The parents blamed me, said I'd put ideas in Jenny's head, made things worse. The Forestry Service put me on suspension pending review. Paperwork said unprofessional conduct. Before I left town, I visited Jenny one last time at the hospital where they were keeping her for observation. Her parents wouldn't let me in, but I saw her through the window in the door. She was sitting on the bed, perfectly still, staring at the wall. Not crying. Not anything. Her mom caught me looking. "She hasn't spoken since that first day," she said. "Just draws those pictures over and over." I asked if I could see them. The mom hesitated, then showed me a stack of papers. Dozens of the same drawing. Animal-headed figures, the black square at the bottom. But in the newer ones, something had changed. A small stick figure now appeared inside the black square. "That's new," the mom said. She didn't seem to realize what it meant. I didn't tell her, just handed the drawings back and left. The Forestry Service reassigned me to fire watch duty, Tower 7, the most remote post in the district. Officially, it was temporary until the review cleared. Unofficially, I think they wanted me out of sight. I packed my gear that night, trying not to think about Jenny's drawings, trying not to imagine Matthew in that black square. The radio crackled with static, and for a second I thought I heard something, a high-pitched sound, almost like whistling. Then it was gone. The next morning I drove out to Tower 7. The road got worse the farther I went, trees pressing in on both sides. When I finally reached the tower, I sat in the truck for a long time, just looking up at it. 70 feet of rusted metal rising out of the woods. At the base of the tower, something caught my eye. A scrap of fabric snagged on a bush, bright red. Kids' pajamas kind of red. I left it there. The key turned stiffly in the lock. The stairs creaked as I climbed. Halfway up, I stopped to catch my breath and looked out the window. The woods stretched for miles in every direction. Somewhere out there was a burnt house with an attic and basement. At least, that's what Jenny said. I kept climbing. The tower smelled like old wood and something else, something faintly metallic. The previous ranger's things were still there. A coffee mug on the desk, a jacket hanging on the back of the chair, like he'd just stepped out for a minute. I checked the logbook. His last entry was 3 weeks ago. Normal stuff. Weather conditions, a small brush fire to the north. Then, on the last page, a single line written in shaky handwriting. They're not animals. I closed the book. Outside, the sun was going down. The woods were getting dark. That's when I heard it. Faint but unmistakable. Whistling. Coming from somewhere below the tower. I didn't go down to check. Just locked the door and sat with my back against it, listening to the sound get closer, then fade away. Jenny was right about one thing. The animals in these woods weren't funny at all. The first thing I noticed about the watchtower was how much of the last ranger's stuff was still there. A half-empty coffee mug sat on the desk, the liquid inside long evaporated to a brown stain. A jacket hung on the back of the chair like someone had just stepped out for air. The whole place smelled like old wood and something faintly metallic, like blood, but not quite. Under the cot, I found the diary. Green leather cover, pages warped from humidity. The first entry was dated 3 months ago, written in neat block letters. Mark Alice, Tower 7. If you find this before I can give it to you, be careful. I sat on the cot and started reading. The early entries were normal. Weather reports, wildlife sightings. Then around week 2, the handwriting changed. Got shaky. Heard whistling last night. Not an animal I recognize. Came from the trees due west. The next page. Saw movement in the tree line at dusk. Too big for a deer. Stood on 2 legs but moved wrong, like it was learning how to walk. I flipped ahead. The entries got shorter, more frantic. They are out there. She is out there waiting, watching, pushing, trying to get you to make a mistake. The word she was underlined 3 times. Near the end, the pages were barely legible, smudges everywhere like the guy had been writing in a hurry. Found the tapes. They knew. They've always known. Then on the last page, just 2 words taking up the whole sheet. She's here. I put the diary down. Outside, the sun was going down, turning the woods into a wall of shadows. That's when I noticed the shelf above the desk. 3 VHS tapes, no labels. Next to them, another green ledger, this one older, covered in dust. The first tape was just static for about 30 seconds. Then a grainy image appeared. The view from the tower window. Daytime. The camera zoomed in on something moving through the trees. At first I thought it was a bear, but the proportions were wrong. Too tall. The way it moved, it wasn't natural. The footage cut out after maybe 10 seconds. The second tape showed the interior of the tower at night. The camera was pointed at the door. For 5 minutes, nothing. Then the doorknob turned. Slowly, the door creaked open just an inch before the tape cut to static. I didn't watch the third one. The older ledger was from 1998. Different handwriting, same story. Normal entries at first, then the same deterioration. This guy had drawn pictures, crude sketches of things with too many limbs, faces that weren't quite right. His last entry: the whistling comes from her mouth, but she has no lips. I put everything back where I found it. The sun was gone now, just the tower's single bulb fighting the dark. I checked the door, locked. The windows latched. Standard procedure said to radio in at 8 p.m., but I did it early. Tower 7 checking in, I said. Static. Then Vasquez's voice. Copy that. Everything okay? I almost told her about the diary, the tapes. Instead, I said, all good. Night fell hard out here. No light pollution, no nothing. Just black. I sat at the desk with my back to the wall so I could see both windows and the door. The diary lay open to that last page. She's here. Around midnight I heard it. Faint at first, then clearer. Whistling. Not a tune exactly, but close. High-pitched, wavering. Coming from the woods to the west, just like Mark Alice had written. I grabbed the flashlight but didn't turn it on. Just sat there in the dark, listening. The whistling got closer. Then stopped right below the tower. Silence for maybe 5 minutes. Then a new sound. Scraping. Like something dragging along the tower's metal supports. Up and down, methodical. I thought about the door opening in that tape. The radio crackled to life suddenly, making me jump. Just static. Then, so quiet I almost missed it. A voice. Help. It wasn't Vasquez. It sounded like Mark Alice. The scraping stopped. The whistling started again, farther away now. I didn't move until sunrise. In the morning, I went downstairs to check the tower's base. Nothing out of place, no footprints. But on one of the metal supports, about eye level, I found scratches. Fresh. 4 parallel lines, like claw marks. Back in the tower, I flipped through Mark Alice's diary again. On the second to last page, I found something I'd missed. A crude map. It showed the tower, the main trail, and an X about 2 miles northeast. Next to it, he'd written, where they meet. I thought about the missing kids, the cult stories, the burnt house Jenny described. The radio crackled. Vasquez's voice. Tower 7, you there? I picked up the mic. Yeah. You sound like shit. Everything okay? I looked at the map, at the 10th. I'm going off trail today. Routine check. A pause, then. Copy that. Be careful. I packed my bag, flashlight, knife, the map. Left the diary and tapes where I'd found them. If something happened to me, I wanted the next guy to have the same warning. As I locked the tower behind me, the wind picked up. For a second, I thought I heard whistling again. But it was just the wind. Probably. I started walking toward the X. I waited until full dark to follow the map. The woods at night were different, the usual bird sounds gone, replaced by something heavier, like the trees themselves were holding their breath. The X on the map led to a clearing about 2 miles northeast of the tower. I didn't take a flashlight. Didn't want to be seen. I smelled the smoke first. Thick, sweet, like burnt meat, but wrong somehow. Then I saw the flicker of firelight through the trees. I crouched low, moving slow until I could see the clearing. There were maybe 20 of them, all in black robes. They stood in a circle around a bonfire that burned too bright, too blue. On their heads, animal skulls, a deer, a bear, something with horns I didn't recognize. Their chanting wasn't English, wasn't any language I'd heard before. Guttural, clicking sounds that made my skin crawl. At the center of the circle, a figure in a stag's skull knelt beside a shape on the ground. At first, I thought it was a deer. Then it moved, and I realized it was a person, bound, struggling. The chanting got louder. The figure in the stag mask raised something long and sharp. That's when the lights started. At first I thought it was lightning, but there wasn't a cloud in the sky. Then the light got brighter, steadier, hovering above the trees. A disc shape, silent, casting weird shadows across the clearing. The cult members didn't look surprised. If anything, they got more excited. They're chanting faster now, almost frantic. The figure in the stag mask brought the blade down. I looked away, but the sound, I'll never forget that sound. The chanting reached a peak, then stopped dead. That's when the silence got worse. Because in that quiet, I heard something else. A high-pitched whine, like machinery winding up, coming from the lights above. I must have made a noise, a broken branch, a sharp breath. I don't know. But the figure in the stag mask turned its head, right toward me. I ran. Behind me, shouts, then footfalls. Not the whole group, just one set, fast, getting closer. I didn't look back, just crashed through the underbrush, branches whipping at my face. I could hear breathing now, ragged but close. Too close. The tower was still half a mile away. I cut left, trying to throw them off, but the footsteps followed, matching my turns, like they knew these woods better than I ever could. I tripped on something, a root, a rock, and went down hard. Rolled onto my back just in time to see it. The mask, a wolf's skull, yellowed teeth bared, empty eye sockets staring. The robe was tattered, streaked with dirt. Under the mask, I caught a glimpse of skin, too pale, almost gray. The figure didn't speak, just loomed over me, holding that long blade. I scrambled back, feet slipping on wet leaves. It stepped forward, then stopped. From the trees, that whistling again. Loud, insistent. The figure turned its head, listening. Then, without a sound, it turned and vanished into the woods. I didn't wait to see why. I ran the rest of the way to the tower, locked the door behind me, and didn't sleep that night. Every noise outside made my heart hammer, but nothing came. In the morning, I went back to the clearing, empty, just ashes in a rough circle, some burnt logs, no blood, no signs of a struggle. The only weird thing, a patch of blackened ground where the fire had been. The grass there was dead, brittle, and it smelled metallic, like old pennies. I poked through the ashes with a stick, found a piece of bone, too small to tell what it was from. Then something glinted in the dirt, a button, the kind you'd find on a shirt. I left it there. Back at the tower, I thought about calling it in. But what would I say? That I saw people in animal masks maybe killing someone under a UFO? They'd pull me from the tower for sure, maybe worse. That's when I remembered the cameras. Every fire lookout has them, motion-activated traps for wildlife surveys, weather monitoring. Mine had been sitting in the supply closet since I arrived. I got them out, checked the batteries. 4 cameras, each with night vision and a decent zoom, enough to catch anything moving within 100 yards of the tower. I spent the afternoon setting them up, one pointing east toward the trail, one west toward where the whistling always came from, one aimed at the base of the tower stairs, and one facing that patch of blackened grass in the clearing. I kept the rifle close that night. Not that I thought it would help much. Whatever was out there, I wasn't sure bullets would stop it. The cameras had a 3-day memory. If anything came near, I'd have proof. Real proof. Not just stories in a diary or marks on the tower supports. Something scratched at the door around midnight. Just once. Then nothing. I checked the cameras in the morning. The one facing east had triggered at 12:07 a.m. The footage was only 4 seconds long. Just long enough to show a figure in a wolf skull mask standing at the edge of the frame, staring right at the lens. Then the screen went black. The other cameras caught nothing. The cameras arrived 3 days later. High-end trail cams with night vision, motion sensors, the works. I maxed out my credit card buying 4 of them. Had them shipped to the general store in town under a fake name. When Earl at the motel saw the box, he just shook his head like he knew exactly what I was doing. Setting them up took all afternoon. I put one near the clearing where I'd seen the ritual, angled to catch the blackened patch of ground. Another, I pointed at the base of the tower stairs. The third, I hid in the trees west of the tower, facing where the whistling always came from. The last one I kept with me, just in case. The first night, nothing. Second night, same. On the third morning, I checked the cameras like usual, expecting more empty footage. The west-facing camera had triggered at 2:17 a.m. The video was only 8 seconds long. At first, just trees swaying in the night vision's green glow. Then movement. A figure stepping into frame. Tall, thin, wearing a dark robe with something lumpy on its head. It turned toward the camera and I realized the lump was a deer skull. The eye sockets glowed faintly, like there was something behind them. It stood there for 3 seconds, perfectly still, then reached out with one pale hand, 2 long fingers, too many joints, and adjusted the camera's angle slightly, pointing it away from the clearing. The footage cut out. I ran to check the camera. It was still there, still working. But now it pointed at a thick patch of bushes, useless. The lens had no fingerprints, no smudges, just a faint, metallic smell. That night, the camera by the blackened clearing activated. The footage showed the fire starting, not from a match or lighter, just appearing all at once in a blue-white flash. Then figures in animal skull masks forming their circle. Their chanting didn't record, just the crackle of the fire. Near the end of the clip, the fire suddenly flared brighter. The camera auto-adjusted the exposure, turning everything white for a second. When the image cleared, something new hovered above the clearing. Disc-shaped, no lights. Just a black silhouette against the trees. The cult members all raised their arms toward it. Then the footage cut out. When I went to retrieve that camera in the morning, it was gone. Just the tripod remained, the mounting screws twisted apart like someone had unscrewed them with bare hands. The ground around it was scorched, same as the ritual site. 2 cameras left. I moved the one from the tower stairs to face my cot inside. Figured if something got past the others, I'd at least have a record of it. The last one I kept aimed west, readjusting it every few hours in case whatever wore the deer skull came back. On the 5th night, both remaining cameras triggered at the same time. Inside the tower, the footage showed the door handle turning slowly, then stopping. Nothing else. The west-facing camera caught more. First the whistling, faint but clear on the audio track, then movement between the trees. Not the deer skull figure this time. Something lower to the ground, moving fast. The camera's infrared caught glowing eyes, not the reflective shine of an animal, but actual light coming from them. Yellow, unblinking. The thing paused, staring right at the camera. Then it lunged. The footage cut off with a screech of feedback. When I found the camera, it was in pieces, not broken, dissembled. Like someone had taken it apart screw by screw and left the parts neatly arranged on the ground. That was when I understood. They knew about the cameras, let me record some things, stopped me from recording others, playing with me. The last piece of footage came from the tower interior camera. Early morning, just as the sun was coming up. The angle caught the window behind my cot. For a split second, something moved across it. Not outside the glass, behind it. Inside the tower with me. A shadow where no shadow should have been. I reviewed all the footage that night, making copies on my laptop. Proof. Real proof. Not just diary entries or crazy stories. Hard evidence of the cult, the ritual, the thing in the sky. Rose's words came back to me. The Black Elk Witch, the missing kids, George Munson walking out of the woods after months. This wasn't just some backwoods cult. It was older, deeper, connected to whatever lived in these woods long before the town existed. I packed the laptop, the remaining camera, my notes. Everything else could stay. The Forestry Service would just send another ranger, another hopeful face to add to their recruitment posters. At dawn, I loaded the truck, trying not to glance at the trees too often. The tower creaked in the wind behind me. For once, no whistling, just silence. I kept the rifle within reach the whole drive into town. Not that I thought it would help much. Some things, once you see them, you can't unsee, and they don't ever let you go. The diner was empty when I walked in. Rose took one look at my face, at the bag slung over my shoulder, and nodded like she'd been expecting me. "Coffee?" she asked. I shook my head. "I need to use your phone." She slid it across the counter without asking why. I dialed a number I'd memorized years ago, an old friend who worked at a news station upstate. Rose watched me the whole time, absently wiping the counter with a rag. When I hung up, she said, "They won't believe you." "I've got proof," I told her. She smiled then, sad. "Proof don't matter to some things, honey." Outside, the wind picked up. It sounded almost like whistling. I packed my bags fast, throwing everything into the truck without folding anything. The whole time I kept glancing at the tree line, not because I saw anything, but because I knew they were there, watching. The cameras had proven that much. The night before, I'd woken up to scratching at the tower door. Not random either, a pattern. 3 slow drags, then 2 quick ones, like a code. I'd grabbed the rifle and sat with my back against the door until sunrise. When I checked outside, there were fresh marks on the metal. 4 parallel grooves, same as before, but deeper this time. I drove into town to use the library's Wi-Fi, posted everything online, the diary entries, the camera footage, my notes. Didn't use my real name, didn't say where exactly this was happening. Just put it out there in case I disappeared too. The librarian gave me a weird look when I kept checking over my shoulder. I didn't care. Back at the tower, I found the green ledger open on the desk. I hadn't left it that way. The pages were turned to an entry from 2003. Different handwriting, same story. They come to the tower at night. Not always the same ones. Sometimes with animal faces, sometimes just shadows. They watch. They wait. The last line was underlined. They don't like being recorded. I thought about the way the deer skull figure had adjusted the camera, how the other one had been taken apart so precisely. They knew. They'd always known. That's when I decided to leave. Not just the tower, the whole area. I'd drive until I hit a city big enough to disappear in. The Forestry Service could fire me. I didn't care anymore. I slept in the truck that night, parked at the motel. Couldn't bring myself to go back to the tower. Earl didn't ask questions when I showed up at 3 a.m. asking for a room. Just handed me a key and said, "Smart move." I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the footage, the fire, the masks, that thing hovering above the trees, and the eyes, those glowing yellow eyes staring right at the camera. In the morning, I went to Rose's diner. Needed coffee, needed to think. Rose took one look at me and slid a mug across the counter. "You look like hell," she said. I told her I was quitting, leaving town. She didn't seem surprised, just nodded and said, "Probably for the best." Then quieter, They don't like it when people talk. I asked her how long she'd known. She wiped the counter slow, like she was deciding how much to say. Long enough to know better than to go poking around, she finally answered. You see something strange out here. You look the other way. Always. The coffee tasted bitter. I wondered how many others had sat in this same booth, drinking this same coffee, deciding to run. The missing posters on the bulletin board outside seemed to wink at me through the window. I paid my bill and left. The truck was still packed, everything I owned in the back. I checked my phone. No new messages from the Forestry Service. They probably hadn't even noticed I was gone yet. As I drove out of town, I passed the ranger station. Didn't stop, just kept going. The road got smoother as I hit the highway, trees thinning out. I rolled the windows down, let the wind drown out my thoughts. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text. You forgot something. I pulled over fast, heart hammering, checked the back seat. Empty. The truck bed still packed tight. Then I saw it. Tucked under the passenger side wiper blade, a single black feather. I left it there. Didn't touch it. Just got back in the truck and drove faster. The woods faded in the rearview mirror, but the feeling didn't. That itch between my shoulder blades, like eyes on the back of my neck. I kept checking the mirrors, half expecting to see a figure in a mask standing on the shoulder behind me. Nothing. Just empty road. I thought about the footage I'd posted. Wondered if anyone would believe it. Wondered if it would even still be there tomorrow. The sun was setting when I hit the city limits. Streetlights flickered on as I pulled into a motel parking lot. This one was chain-owned, bright and clean. No peeling wallpaper, no Earl at the desk. Just a bored college kid who handed me a key card without looking up. The room smelled like bleach and air freshener. I locked the door behind me, dropped my bags on the floor. The TV played some infomercial quietly. Normal noise, normal place. I sat on the edge of the bed and checked my phone. The post was still up. A few comments already, mostly jokes, one guy asking if this was an ARG. No one taking it seriously. I thought about the ledger entry. They don't like being recorded. Outside, a car honked. Someone laughed. Normal city sounds. But under them faint, almost lost in the noise, a high-pitched whistle. I told myself it was just the wind. Just my imagination. Just the stress of the last few weeks catching up to me. I didn't sleep that night either. Just sat by the window, watching the parking lot lights, waiting for something to move in the shadows. Morning came slow. The whistle never returned. The feather was gone from my windshield when I went outside. Maybe it blew away. Maybe someone took it. I got in the truck and kept driving. Didn't stop until I hit the coast. The ocean stretched out endless, no trees for miles. I thought that would make me feel better. It didn't. Because here's the thing about running. You can leave a place. But some things, once they've seen you, don't let go that easy. I still hear the whistling sometimes. Not often. Just enough to remind me. They're still watching. I found the diary again last night. The last page was blank before. Now it says, in my handwriting, but I don't remember writing it. I don't know if I'll make it out of here. The woods outside my window are quiet tonight. Too quiet. No wind, no animals. Just that whistling, far off but getting closer. I packed my bags days ago but haven't left. Every time I try, something stops me. A flat tire, a dead battery, that black feather on my windshield again. Some places don't let you go. Some things follow. If you ever hear whistling in the woods, run. Don't look back.